I hadn't seen the house in years. It stood there, same slate blue shutters, same porch swing, like time had passed for me, but not for it. My mother kept everything just as it was, like a museum curated by grief, nostalgia, and a fierce need for control. Carmel had changed, but this house hadn't. I stepped inside. The air carried that old scent, lavender and lemon oil, like it had been scrubbed down just hours before. Everything in its place, too much in its place. I was the youngest, the quiet one. Never caused trouble, never spoke out, just stayed in my lane. I opened the coat closet to hang my jacket, and there it was, my red scarf. The one Mom knitted for me in high school, the one I thought she'd tossed years ago, tucked neatly beside the mothballs. I held it for a second, unsure if I felt seen or dismissed. Then I looked up and noticed it again. The attic door, still sealed shut. Still giving off that eerie vibe of off-limits. I stared a moment longer than I should have, long enough to know something inside me was beginning to wake up. Later that afternoon, Mom asked for help fixing the hallway light, just some flickering near the upstairs landing. I grabbed the step stool, pulled the fixture down, and right then I noticed it. A slight buzzing, a warmth that shouldn't have been there. I flicked the switch. The light blinked twice, then stayed dark. "Old houses," Mom said when I mentioned it. Her tone was sweet, rehearsed. "They always do that." I could call someone to take a look. "There's no need," she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I called Dex anyway. He was the only electrician I still had in my contacts from high school. Showed up the next morning with his usual flannel and work boots, still chewing sunflower seeds like he always did. He climbed up the landing, gave the ceiling a few taps, then frowned. "You've got live wires going somewhere they shouldn't. That's not normal." He pushed the panel back and listened. "You hear that? That clicking sound?" It was faint, like a switch being flipped, then reset. Flip. Reset. He shined his flashlight and pointed. "See these scorch marks? That's not faulty wiring. Someone rerouted this intentionally." "Intentionally?" I echoed. "Yeah. You've got a power line going straight toward that attic door." I felt a chill then. Not the kind you get from a cold room. The kind that crawls up your spine when something buried too long starts to surface. I remembered every time I asked about that attic as a kid. Her answer was always the same. "There's nothing up there for you." And I believed her. Until now. Dex tapped the door with the butt of his flashlight. "This lock's weird, not just residential. That's a reverse tamper mechanism, like something they use for inventory control or secured storage." I ran my fingers over the frame. It had been painted over, but you could see the reinforcement, metal plates beneath the wood. Mom appeared behind us, quiet as ever. Her voice cracked slightly. "That door's been like that for years." Dex raised an eyebrow. "That's not a regular lock, ma'am." She bristled. "Stop imagining things. You two are wasting time." I nodded, pretending to accept it. But the moment she walked off, I turned back to Dex. "I'm going to open it," I whispered. "Tonight." That evening, I sat on the bed in my childhood room, holding the red scarf. The ceiling above me looked the same. The stars I stuck up there in third grade still glowed faintly. Funny how some things outlast memories. I thought about every time I let things slide. Every moment I chose silence over confrontation. Maybe that's why they always kept secrets from me. I made it too easy. Not anymore. I went out to the garage, dug around until I found Dad's old toolbox. Everything coated in dust, untouched. I picked out a narrow flathead screwdriver. My hand didn't even shake. I waited until the house went still, Mom's TV humming through the floorboards. No footsteps, no movement. I unplugged my lamp. The room dimmed to a faint shadow. Then I stepped out into the hallway, scarf wrapped tight around my neck, screwdriver clenched in one hand. The attic door stood at the end of the hall, darker than the rest of the house. I moved toward it. I waited until the hallway light dimmed and the house fell into that kind of silence only old homes can hold. I moved carefully, screwdriver in hand, socked feet gliding over wood that still remembered where it liked to creak. The attic door loomed ahead, still sealed tight. My breath was steady, but my hands, Not so much. They trembled with more than just anticipation. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was the feeling you get when you know you're doing something that might finally reveal the truth. I knelt, angled the screwdriver into the hinge. Slow, quiet turns. But the moment the frame shifted even slightly, it groaned. Loud. A dragging, tired sound. I froze. A beat later, I heard footsteps downstairs, soft but unmistakable. I held my breath. Waited. The footsteps paused, then turned away. Still, I knew the moment had passed. I couldn't risk it. I tucked the screwdriver behind the hallway mirror, wiped my hands on my sweatshirt, and slipped back into my bedroom. But lying in bed, sleep wouldn't come. The failure didn't feel like fear. It felt like betrayal. Of myself. I had that door within reach, and I backed down. But the real ache? I knew I was right, and somehow that made it worse. Morning came with the sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen. I walked in like nothing had happened. Sat down. Toast, butter, a familiar silence hanging in the air. Mom moved slower than usual, or maybe I was just noticing it more. "You sleep okay?" she asked without looking up. "Yeah, you?" She nodded, but her shoulders looked too straight, like she was performing calmness. I buttered my toast, took a bite, then casually asked, "Why was the attic sealed again?" Her hand froze mid-wipe on the counter. "It's dangerous," she said, barely above a whisper. "You wouldn't understand." "I might. Try me." She looked up then, and for a second, just a flash, her expression hardened. Then it melted back into something softer, too soft. "You've never been interested in that old attic before." "That doesn't answer the question," she exhaled. "Just old insulation, bad wiring, it's nothing." But it was the way she said it, the pause, the tightness in her jaw, the way her voice trembled at the end. It wasn't much, but it cracked something in me. I'd never heard her sound unsure. Not once. Her voice always carried authority, the kind you didn't question, even when you should have. And now, that tremble felt like a fracture. I took my mug to the sink and rinsed it, staring out the window while she dried her hands. We didn't say another word. Later, I went out to the garage to grab cleaner for the upstairs bathroom. That's when I found it. A box wedged under the workbench, labeled Crafts in fading Sharpie. I opened it, expecting glitter or glue sticks. Instead, I found old receipts, tangled wires, and a rusted-out fuse switch. A Ziploc bag held lock parts, thick, industrial ones, and beside it, a folded sheet of paper. It was an order form, dated 2008, for sealed thermal paneling, attic-grade insulation. That wasn't storage. That was a project. Something carefully planned, hidden in plain sight. Something meant to stay shut. I sat back on my heels. Suddenly I remembered. Mom once said something about keeping the house safe from storms. But there hadn't been a tornado warning in Carmel for years. This wasn't about storms. It was about containment. I took a picture of the order form with my phone, folded everything back into place, and shut the box. Inside the house, Mom was humming in the kitchen. A song I half recognized from my childhood, something soft and repetitive. I stood in the doorway and said, "I found that old order form for the attic work." Her spoon stopped stirring. Then, just as quickly, she resumed. "Oh, that, years ago." I forgot it was even there. There it was again, her voice cracking at the edge, and this time it didn't sound like age or fatigue. It sounded like fear. People don't forget the things they actively hide. They forget things they don't care about. I retreated to my room and opened a blank notebook I found in the closet. Began jotting everything down. Voice changes, physical tics, the lies that were too smooth. I wasn't sure what I was building, but I knew it would matter later. That night, as darkness settled over the house, I lay in bed with the scarf again. It was colder than the night before, or maybe it was just my body reacting to the quiet. A phrase from childhood floated to the surface. "We don't ask questions about what we're given." That was Mom's way. Keep the peace. Don't stir the water. But peace like that? it always comes at a cost. I slipped out of my room, careful this time, not to pry the attic, not yet. Instead, while Mom watered the garden, her late evening ritual, I stepped into her study. The filing cabinet wasn't locked. I slid it open and leafed through the folders until one caught my eye. Inside, I found a letter addressed to someone I didn't recognize, not a neighbor, not family, a name I'd never heard before, and yet reading it made my chest tighten like I already knew exactly what it meant. I crept into the hallway before sunrise. The air felt colder than usual, like the house had caught a secret I wasn't meant to hear. I slipped open the drawer of the old cabinet in the study, expecting to find insurance papers or utility bills. Instead, I pulled out a brittle yellow envelope. The name on it, Thomas Rayford, typed in faded ink. Nothing else. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the letter within. The paper cracked along old creases. The words inside were pleading. Don't let her seal it again. I wasn't supposed to survive. The date, 2009. I whispered it to the dust motes drifting above my head. That same year, they sealed the attic. He mentioned a child, fear, something hidden beneath insulation. It felt like a confession from someone forced into silence. I'd never heard of Thomas, but reading that name gave me chills, like it had been carved in the walls. I grabbed my phone and typed in his name in online public records. Nothing. No birth certificate, no death record, no reference at all. But then I spotted a renovation permit from 2008 filed under my mother's name. A permit to reinforce the attic, install new locks, heavy insulation, odd timing, somehow familiar. That winter, visitors were never allowed. I was told it was roof repairs. But it never made sense. This was not maintenance. It was preparation, a planned concealment. At dinner, I decided to test her. I casually dropped the name. Mom, did you ever know a Tomas Rayford? She froze. Knife in midair. Plate clack. She said, No, never heard of him. Her lie was clean, too clean, but the color drained from her face. She refused eye contact for the rest of dinner. Later, I heard her lock the bedroom door, something she hasn't done in years. My promise to myself was quiet, internal. Don't invade her privacy. Don't dig where she didn't want me to. But I found myself standing in her doorway the next morning, waiting for her to leave. When she stepped out into the yard, I slipped inside. Her room was still. Her nightstand drawer cracked open to reveal another envelope, empty, but in the same handwriting. I searched under the mattress, behind clothes, shoe boxes, nothing else. But scrawled faintly on the back of her mirror, What we bury doesn't stay buried. This wasn't just hiding. It was guilt, shame, and something she couldn't outrun. That night I dreamed. I saw the attic from below, floorboards shifting, a scratching sound above. A muffled voice, one desperate word. Please, not again. I jolted awake, sweat on my skin, throat raw. I whispered into darkness. Who are you, Tomas? What did my mother do? Morning came with the scent of burnt paper. In the fireplace, charred fragments of letters. I stepped forward, extinguished embers, and found one piece stained in the same ink as Tomas's letter. My hands froze over the ash. I woke up before the alarm, heart still rattling from the burnt letters I pulled from the fireplace the night before. The scent of ash still lingered on my fingers. I moved through the hallway in my socks, careful not to step on the creaky boards. The morning light had just started bleeding through the living room curtains. I didn't need coffee to stay alert. I was running on instinct now. The attic door loomed like a dare, still locked, still untouched. But that silence up there wasn't passive. It was waiting. I pulled on a windbreaker, slid a small flashlight and my old work gloves into the pockets. No more waiting, no more second-guessing. This wasn't just about curiosity anymore. I needed answers. Not just for Tomas. For me. By late morning, Mom had left for the store. I slipped into the garage again, fingers skimming past the old crafts box until I reached the back. A smaller tin box this time, tightly latched. Dull gray, labeled in faded Sharpie. Property wills. I grabbed a flathead screwdriver and pried gently. It fought back, like it knew it wasn't supposed to be opened. The latch finally gave with a stubborn pop, and inside was just one document, folded carefully, aged yellow, the kind of paper you don't just toss. I unfolded it. My hands shook. It was a property deed, or maybe a will, I wasn't sure. But the signature at the bottom, bold and unmistakable, Araminta Vale Sinclair. I'd seen that name on a family photo from the 70s once, scrawled on the back like a museum label. I snapped a photo and slid the paper back carefully. That night over dinner, I laid the tin box on the table like a silent accusation. Mom barely looked up. "Is this part of something you hid from me?" I asked quietly. She didn't flinch, just stopped chewing. Swallowed. Her fork rested gently against her plate. "That's old stuff. You wouldn't understand the legal end of it." "Try me," I said. Her smile was thin. "You think this is about you, but it's not. Families." She paused. "We protect what we need to." I leaned forward. "So why the attic? Why the locks? Why the lies?" She raised her eyes. "Because sometimes people dig up things that should have stayed buried." And that was the end of the conversation. Or maybe the start of something worse. Later that week, I waited until Mom went out for her evening walk. I walked over to Dex's van parked 2 blocks down. He popped the back, and I showed him the photo. Dex squinted. "That's the same handwriting from those insulation orders," he said. "No doubt." I asked him if he remembered anything strange from back then. He scratched his head. "Your mom met someone back then, real hush-hush. Think it was a lawyer. Black car. Never saw him more than once." That night, I combed through property tax records, deeds, permits. Something caught my eye. Land transferred in 2009. Profits not declared. Discreet. Legal, maybe. But unethical. The document in the tin box confirmed it. Araminta had diverted part of the estate, either from me or from Odessa. I wasn't just tracing family secrets anymore. I was chasing something they didn't want me to inherit. That changed everything. Back at the house, I sat in my room with the tin box on the desk. The attic above me like a breath I hadn't exhaled yet. A phrase echoed in my head, one I heard at church years ago. "Truth is the light by which we see ourselves." I wasn't doing this out of revenge. I just wanted the truth, even if it broke something, even if it broke us. A sudden thump interrupted me. Upstairs, above the ceiling. It was quick, but real. Not pipes, not wind, a box, or something like it, dropping. I clicked on my flashlight and aimed it upward, and then I heard it, faint but sharp, the scrape of something shifting just beyond the attic floorboards. Morning arrived heavy and quiet. Mom stayed in her room longer than usual, and when she appeared, she gave only a nod. The silence was oppressive. I wandered into her study to dust the shelves, hoping motion would distract me from the emptiness. That's when I saw it. Her old flip phone tucked behind stacks of papers, powered off, tucked in a pouch labeled, "Do not use." My heart froze. This wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. I took it, slipped it into my bag, and waited until she left for her walk. Behind her back, I plugged it into my charger in the kitchen. Mid-afternoon, the screen flickered awake. I powered it on quietly and browsed her contacts, mostly her bridge club, old neighbors, a few she never called. Then I found a folder labeled Draft Voice MSGs, one entry, "To her. Unsent draft." I pressed play. Her voice sounded raw. "I never meant for her to see any of it. Please don't let her open the attic. It'll ruin everything I worked for." She choked on the next line. "If she finds out who Tomas really was." And then silence. I sat frozen. My mother, confessing to herself on a tape she never sent. That voice tremor in the line felt like an electric shock. Hands shaking, I rewound the message, played it again. My stomach twisted. How long had she lived with this secret, talking into nothingness? The betrayal stung me sharp. Next, I rifled through drawers, photo albums, boxes. I found a photograph wedged behind a drawer lining. Mom, younger, standing beside a bearded man I didn't recognize, and a small girl beside them, not me. The photo was taped on the back. Christmas 2004. Larchwood. My breath caught. Larchwood wasn't a name I'd ever heard from her. I searched my memory and realized, of all the places she'd never spoken of, that was one. I caught her in the kitchen next. I asked casually, "Mom, did you ever live near Larchwood?" She spilled her coffee. Mug half-tipped. "Where did you hear that?" she spat. I held up the phone screen with the recording, the draft message, her voice pleading. Nothing she said after that felt real. Her reply came cold. "You had no right digging into my things." I asked, voice steady, "Who's the girl in the photo?" She slammed the cupboard shut, stormed out of the room, and locked her bedroom door behind her. Her sobs echoed through the walls. I pressed my ear to the door and heard raw grief, unfiltered and painful. I stumbled backward, hand over chest. My heart felt like it was fracturing. I laid down on my bed and pulled out my journal. I wrote every certitude I held, my name, my birth dates, all verified truths. Then I flipped the page and penned what didn't make sense, names she never mentioned, places she never visited, stories that twisted in hindsight. I stared at the photo again. My fingers trembled. My eyes landed on the small bracelet on the girl's wrist, delicate but familiar. I ran to my jewelry box, opened it. There sat the very same bracelet, gleaming faintly in the dim light. Underneath the dust, engraved initials. My blood ran cold. I woke up with the bracelet still pressed into my palm, the imprint of its edges faint on my skin. Morning light stretched across the ceiling like nothing had happened, like everything hadn't shifted in the span of one night. I got up slowly, mind fogged with half-formed questions and a sharp awareness that things had changed. Deeply, permanently. Mom was already in the kitchen, moving about like it was just another Thursday. She poured tea, humming under her breath, placed a mug in front of me like we were still playing mother and daughter. I played along, took the tea, offered a smile I didn't mean. She said casually, "You know, sometimes it's better to leave the past where it belongs." Her eyes didn't meet mine, just the corner of her mouth twitching like a private joke. I nodded, but something in me started pushing back. Not with yelling or accusations, just the quiet tightening of resolve. The kind of silence that builds into something unshakable. Mid-afternoon, I stepped out to check the mailbox. I wasn't expecting anything, bills, junk flyers, but tucked between them was an envelope, no return address. Thick paper, my name on the front, handwritten. I opened it on the porch. Inside was a single sheet, no salutation, just a sentence. "You should have never opened the attic. Stop now, or lose everything." It looked like my handwriting, my own damn loops and pressure marks. But I hadn't written it. I knew that like I knew my own name. I stood there for a long moment, the breeze tugging at the edges of the paper. Then I went straight to Dex's van, showed him the note. He held it up to the light, comparing it to an old grocery list I'd scribbled once on his dashboard. "It's close," he said. "Like, maybe someone studied your writing, but the slant's off. See that loop on the G? That's not yours." Back home, I found her sitting in the sunroom flipping through an old Reader's Digest. I asked her again about the attic. She didn't look up. "Some truths cost more than lies," she said. I stared at her. "Why are you doing this?" She finally raised her eyes. Cold. Unreadable. "Doing what?" "You're trying to scare me." "Why would I scare someone I love?" she asked, voice so flat it didn't even sound like hers. Then she stood and left the room. The door clicked behind her, and something inside me finally snapped. Not loudly, but the way a branch snaps under ice. Clean, silent, irreversible. I sat on my bed that night, with the letter laid out in front of me, her words replaying over and over. I kept whispering, "Who are you?" And then I stopped asking her. I started asking myself. I began to write timelines, people, places, dates, what I knew, what I didn't, every inconsistency, every memory that didn't quite fit. This wasn't just about inheritance or a sealed attic. This was deeper, dirtier, older. I scanned the letter and uploaded it to a forensic handwriting analysis site. I knew it wouldn't solve everything, but I needed something. Anything. Objective. The result came back. 87% match. Potential forgery with intent to intimidate. My chest went tight. Then, creaking, behind me, I turned. She was standing in the hallway, holding a photograph. One I hadn't seen before. Her fingers gripped it like a weapon. Her voice came low. You weren't supposed to see that one either. My heart stopped. Not because of the photo, but because I suddenly realized what was in the background. I woke to a house that felt hollow. The letter sat on the kitchen table, untouched, edges curling slightly. My phone flashed with messages, unknown numbers, but I resisted. I watched Mom slip down the hallway, silent as a ghost, eyes averted. The air felt colder. I poured myself coffee, hands steady. Inside, tension simmered. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. That untouched envelope, burning in my pocket, was loud enough. Later, I unlocked my phone and opened one message. You think you know her. You know nothing. Stop digging. My heart pounded. Another read, she's hurting you more than you realize. No name, no clue, but the timing implied she sent them herself or controlled someone who did. I forwarded them to Dex, battered at my composure. I felt trapped. Even in silence, she was reaching me. At lunch, Odessa stood up and addressed the table. Junie is chasing ghosts. Leave Mom alone. Her voice rang louder than the clatter of dishes. Guests shifted in their seats. Some looked at me with pity, others with confusion. I felt her words slice through me. I used to belong here. Now I was cast out. I asked through gritted teeth, how can you believe her over me? She slammed her plate down and walked away. Anger boiled. I retreated to Mom's old study, hands trembling as I rifled through papers. I found a folded note in Odessa's handwriting. Do what's necessary to protect the legacy. The words blurred on the page. My breath hitched. She had sided with my enemy, part of the design. I felt betrayal deeper than the tampered wires or sealed attic. They never saw me as part of them. I gripped the threatening message, firming my resolve. Maya Angelou's words echoed. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. That's when I accepted. I don't need validation from them. Not now. I decided publicly to force their hand, to drag secrets into light. I rose, walked into the kitchen. Then the lights flickered. The attic door creaked open behind me, and I heard her voice whisper, "You were never supposed to know everything." I spent the afternoon rehearsing what I would say, not to accuse, but to speak truth. By the time guests started arriving, nerves had settled into steel. Under the guise of a memory night, I invited Mom, Odessa, Dex, Rowena, neighbors, and a few old friends. The dining room was set warm, soft lights casting gentle glows, music low in the background. Everything looked like an ordinary family evening. But in my pocket, I carried the phone tethered to a projector. My heart pounded. This was the moment I chose. After the appetizers, I cleared my throat and asked for attention. The murmurs faded. I tapped the screen and started playback. Recordings, photographs, the signed will, images of the tin box, the draft message, the photo of Mom with Tomas. The room's quiet felt heavy. Guests' jaws dropped. Odessa shifted uncomfortably. Mom's smile stiffened. I spoke calmly, detailing each piece. This is the will she hid. This is the message she never sent. This is the photo she denied. Dex stood beside me. He shared something I didn't expect, his past with Mom. He explained how she'd promised payment, then recanted, leading him to refuse further work. He showed repair logs and repair timestamps. His revelation reframed the wiring manipulations, the attic tampering. The room's murmurs swelled, eyebrows raised. I felt vindicated. The hidden wires, the sealed attic, the lie in every corner were not figments of my imagination. Mom stood, trembling. She lunged toward the screen, trying to shut it off. Odessa leaped to restrain her. Tension erupted like a storm. I planted myself. No! Let the light shine! Her scream cut through us. You don't know what you're doing! You're tearing us apart! She collapsed into the chair, tears streaming. The room went still. Her denial, her tears, her facade, all stripped away. I didn't watch her break. Instead, my eyes found the attic door behind her chair. It had creaked open slightly. At that exact moment, the projector's screen flickered again, revealing a blueprint of the attic. Hidden chambers I never knew existed. I stepped forward. You built more than rooms. You built walls to bury your secrets. And then the chandelier's lights vanished. Darkness swallowed the room. I woke up late, not from exhaustion, but from stillness. No more footsteps outside my door, no more whispers under breath. The house didn't creak with tension. It just sat there, quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't beg to be broken. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. I sat on the edge of the bed, tin box in one hand, manila folder in the other. All of it. Photos, letters, recordings, proof. I carried it downstairs, pausing just before the front door. The attic door stood wide open now, not locked, not hiding, just part of the house again. I stood there a moment longer, letting the air settle in my lungs. Then I stepped out. I drove straight to Bennett Crow, left the documents, audio files, and my written statement in a sealed envelope. I sent digital copies to 2 local news stations and a civil rights attorney. By afternoon, it was all out. Headlines hit fast. Family secrets unraveled in quiet Larchwood home. People started whispering. Some thanked me for speaking up. Others called me a traitor. She turned on her own mother for a piece of land, one neighbor wrote. She's brave. It takes guts to call out blood, said another. Mom was caught outside by a news crew. She tried to hold her poise, but it cracked. Odessa wouldn't look at the camera. She told a local reporter she needed time to process. Friends sent mixed messages, some in support, others in stunned silence. A few days later, I returned to the house. It didn't feel like home. Not anymore. I stepped into the living room where Mom sat alone. I didn't yell. I read from the will, her voice from the recordings playing behind me. She didn't interrupt, didn't object. Her face didn't move. Not anger, not denial, just tired. I stopped speaking when the silence said more than I ever could. She didn't apologize, and I didn't need her to. The days that followed were full of cardboard boxes and tape. Dex helped me move into a 1-bedroom apartment across town. Simple, sunlight streamed in without asking permission. We shared takeout on the floor, talked about things that had nothing to do with attics or betrayals. I looked through old photo albums, touching faces that now meant something different. Memories rearranged themselves. Rowena called. We met for coffee. She brought an envelope of documents, land records, old journals, even a faded photograph of Tomas with a girl in a blue dress. She might be your sister, Rowena said. Or cousin. It's all tied to Larchwood. I contacted a genealogist, filed formal legal challenges against the will, not out of vengeance, but out of clarity. I wasn't going to let silence dictate my story. Late one afternoon, I drove past the old house again. I didn't go in, just stood at the curb the way I used to wait for the school bus. Same sidewalk, different woman. I pulled out the old scarf. Mom knitted it when I was 7. I wrapped it around my shoulders, not for comfort, for memory. I whispered, "Thank you for teaching me the cost of lies and the value of truth." As I got back in the car, the sun dipped behind the house. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You opened it. Now live with it. I didn't flinch. I started the engine, looked ahead, and drove into whatever came next.